All right, good evening. I'd like to call the council meeting of January 23rd, 2018 to order. First of all, I'd like to start by thanking Sydney, Ryan, and Aaron Chu for providing prelude music tonight. Let's see, City Manager, provide our invocation, and Councilmember Comachero, would you lead us in our flag salute?
Great. Would you please stand? Please bow your head. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we just give you thanks for this day. We give you thanks for our city, our community, the opportunity to serve as public servants. I pray for wisdom and discernment for the city council. I pray for the city staff and all those that are called to deliver this service. And we pray for your blessings on this meeting. And we ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Remain standing. Place your hand over your heart and join me as we honor our nation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Madam City Clerk, can we have the roll call, please?
Councilmember Comachero?
Here.
Councilmember Edwards?
Here.
Councilmember Nagar?
Good evening.
Councilmember Stewart is absent. Mayor Ron?
I am here. Okay, this evening we have one presentation. I'd like to welcome Craig Evans from Habitat for Humanity to the podium. Good evening.
Mr. Mayor, council members, staff, and visitors, good evening, and thank you for having me. Craig Evans, I'm the president of Habitat for Humanity Inland Valley. Our executive director, Tammy Marine, apologizes for not being here with you tonight. She is up in Sacramento with many other habitators, as I call them, and she is lobbying our state legislatures for funds for low-income housing all over our area, and Temecula is included also. I have been a longtime resident of Temecula, nearly 30 years myself with my family, and have devoted much of my spare time to activities including scouts and church, and volunteered a lot in our community. And after 33 years serving the Los Angeles City Fire Department, I have dedicated myself to volunteer for Habitat for Humanity, an amazing organization which I probably don't have to talk a lot about because you already know. For most, Habitat is well known as that organization that builds affordable, safe, and decent housing for low-income families throughout the world. The vision for Habitat for Humanity is to provide low-income housing for those families that are desperately in need of such. And Temecula is no exception to that. But we offer a lot more services than just building homes for low-income families. We do a lot of educational opportunities here in our area. We offer classes to families and those who are seeking to be homeowners, folks that need to help repair their credit, families that are looking to figure out how to budget finances in their own lives. And most recently, we have joined with the City of Temecula and Charles Walker in your vocational training, construction training program that's coming up here in a couple of weeks. I happen to be the lead instructor on the construction portion of that program. Looking forward to that to work with your city. But directly, we do a lot of programs to help homeowners that are in their own homes that are struggling with maintaining those houses. And the program we are working with you guys, with your Community Development Block Grant, is what we call critical home repair programs. Critical home repairs mean that these are families that are at low-income status, and their homes, they are struggling to stay in their homes because their homes are in some kind of need of repair. Critical repair, roofs, air conditioning, windows, things that they are struggling with being able to afford. So these community development block grants are married with Habitat's programs. It's ideal. We have the facilities, we have the staff, we have the resources and the knowledge to vet families, homeowners that are struggling, and use funds that you're providing for our organization to go directly to these homeowners. Great, it's a wonderful program. As you know, the city of Temecula has a growing inventory of aging homes. We also have a growing inventory of aging population here too, and we find that many of those families are very low income. Families, widowers, mothers that are trying to raise their kids, veterans that find themselves in a difficult place in their homes, the ability not to be able to maintain their home because their incomes are very low. So what are our goals? Improve the neighborhoods. A home that's not doing well in a neighborhood that's dilapidated, we know brings down the value of that neighborhood. So let's help find ways to fix that home up, fix that neighborhood up. We also address health and safety issues. If you have a leaky roof, if you have windows that are letting water and mold grow in your house, not a healthy situation. If you have porches that are breaking down or dilapidated, that's a health and safety hazard. So we address that too. And a big thing is that we want to try to keep families in their homes. So if you've got a home, you're low income, it's very difficult to be able to do some of the major repairs on those homes. You're forced to do what? Sell. You don't have much of another option. These programs that we're doing here provide that option. Funds are going into those homes to bring them up to a place. So when we say low income, what does that mean? In our area, we don't serve anybody who makes over 80% of the medium income for Riverside County. For a family of 4, that's about $32,000 a year. For a family of 1, at the 50% level, that's $22,000 a year. Imagine that's your income and you're trying to maintain a home. Very, very difficult. Of our population, okay, I can make this work. Of our population that we serve, our low-income families, we serve 80%. That's what you asked us to do, 80% below the median income. This project with the community block development grants, of that portion of the families that we served, 57% were lower than 50% of the income, quite low. And the homes that they had were in major need of repair. Of the block that we worked with your funds, 66% were seniors. 70% were females, either single or raising a family, and 31% were veterans. So we serve a very necessary and needed part of our community. Here's a house, typical Temecula house. Looks pretty good from the street. Let's take a little closer look. This house has a major roof problem. It has had that for years, and the fascia and underlayment under that roof is deteriorating. It's running down the sides. The windows are leaking as water runs down around them. This roof was in terrible condition, allowing lots of water, and the backside, which was exposed to the summer sun, was a disaster. Your funds helped put a brand new roof on that house, and we were able then to be able to paint the house, fill all those cracks in around the windows, and put this house in nice condition. So this is what the house looks like. Now I have to tell you something interesting about this woman in this home. She had contracted with somebody to do this work with her very limited income. He came to that house and he started some of this work you see on this slide and left. She never found him. He never answered any of her calls. She was out that money. So these are some, so where can you turn to? Habitat. We're not going to cheat anybody out of any money. That's not what we do. So let's take a look at this roof. This is a mobile home in the city of Temecula. The family, the widower living in this structure, she just could not afford to keep the water out of her house. Your funds put a brand new roof on her house. Another mobile home, the stairs and porch on this house, very dangerous. The railing had completely fallen off, and as they stepped out into this porch area, all that plywood was crumbling. So the lower picture on the right, you see, we did a wonderful job in reinforcing it, putting a new railing around it. It really did a nice job. And here's another house. This is kind of typical, wood siding, and the water had gotten into it and rotted it. We pulled all that out, resealed, and recaulked that window, and put that house back into nice condition. So that's where your money is going. You've been funding us for 4 years, a little bit, and we appreciate that. Over the 4 years, it's been about $100,000 that has gone into this critical home repair program with the community block development grants. So it's really the neighbors that thank you, your homeowners, people that live on my street. We thank you for being able to, being as positive as you have to help us out. And I thank you as the president of Habitat for Humanity for giving us that responsibility to help our neighbors out. Any questions that I could answer while I'm here for you?
I have a comment, though.
Go ahead. Thank you guys so very much.
No,
I appreciate all your work you're doing for us in this
You
community.
gave us a great overview of Habitat, but I think you left out something really important. Not only does Habitat help the beneficiaries of the labor, the work, and city funding, but you bring communities together because you have so many volunteers and so many businesses that supply goods and services. So you really do work to bring the community together. And so Habitat doesn't just build homes, it builds community.
It does. There's a project that's coming up with your funds. It's a veteran, and we are going to be doing windows, doors, and caulking on his house, and that's the limit of our funds. We knocked on the door of Owens Corning and said, we need a roof. They said, who's helping you? City of Temecula's helping, Habitat's helping. They raised their hand, they stepped right in. We're putting a roof on that house for free.
Great.
That's the kind of collaborative effort that happens with an organization like ours. Thank you, appreciate that.
Well, thank you so much.
All right, guys, have a nice evening.
You too. Okay. Hey, Madam City Clerk, do we have any public comments this evening?
We do, Mr. Mayor. We have 3 public comments on non-agendized items and no public comments on the consent calendar. The first public comment on non-agendized items is Wayne Hall, to be followed by Ms. Miller.
Okay, since we have public comments, Wayne, I have to read something really quickly. A total of 30 minutes is provided for members of the public to address the City Council on items that appear within the consent calendar or a matter not listed on the agenda. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. If the speaker chooses to address the City Council on an item listed on the consent calendar or a matter not listed on the agenda, request to speak form may be filled out and filed with the City Clerk prior to City Council addressing public comments in the consent calendar. Once the speaker is called to speak, please come forward, state your name for the record. For all public hearing or council business items on the agenda, request to speak form may be filed with the City Clerk prior to City Council addressing that item. Each speaker is limited to 5 minutes. And I have had a ton of coffee today, clearly. So, Wayne, good afternoon. Appreciate you joining us. Let's hear it.
Can you repeat that, please?
Yeah, no, well, you just get once every 2 weeks.
Okay. Good evening. I was down by the bottom of Marietta Creek the other day, dropping a friend off. Apparently, we were in a discussion about Temecula, and of course, I'm always bragging about Temecula. And he says, are we talking about the same creek you're talking about? And I'm saying, what are you talking about? And as we got close down to phase 1, and I'm sure all of you have seen phase 1, it's gone to seed. My question is that if that was a privately supplied and privately done business, somebody would have gotten fired. Phase 2 is coming up, and it's ending here, hopefully in May. And now they got to try and get phase 1 and phase 2 to come together. But that's an issue that I'm a little upset about. We're talking about some money now, and I know that dealing with the Army Corps of Engineers and the flood control people, they're all bureaucrats, in my opinion. It's terrible. It looks terrible. It was shocking to me when I saw it, but, you know, I guess that's par for the course when you deal with the government. My next question is, though, is it once? No, let's back up a little bit. About 4 months ago, no, a couple months ago, you had some guy come up here with a PhD, and he was talking, and he was just talking about the Clear Water Act and all this stuff from San Diego about how clean the water should be in the flood control district. And he went on for 45 minutes. Let's just say that he was spilling his BS, because that's what I thought it was. I didn't believe him. And then when I went down and saw the lower part of Temecula Creek, well, welcome to reality, because I don't know where he got his information from, but it ain't true. Not once during his little speech did he mention anything about the homeless people in the creek, not once. Two questions I have is that once flood control and the clean water yo-yos go away, who's going to keep an eye on that creek? Who's going to maintain it? Now, I don't mean that the city's got to go in there and change it. I'm not saying that. But somebody's got to keep an eye on the hen house. Somebody has to make sure that if the weeds get a little too tall, call that young man with the lawnmower or wherever that thing is. I've never seen it. I'd like to see it one day. But who says it's time? Who says where? That's what I want to know. Now, I know that the city has very little control, if any, on that Marietta Creek. I understand that. And I'm not bad-mouthing the city. I'd never do that. Well, I would, but not in this case. My point is, it's in terrible condition right now. It shouldn't be. We're in the rainy season right now. We shouldn't be in this shape.
Mr.
Once
Hall,
these
I'm gonna
guys
have
leave,
to-
let me
have to
close
ask
up
you to
here.
wrap it
I'll
up.
close
Thank you,
up.
sir.
Can we have somebody bring this to bring it to the agenda so we can talk about this again? Could we bring that up one day so we can talk about it and say, what is going on over there? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
The next speaker is Ms. Miller, to be followed by Mark Caton.
Now there's a priority, the cleanliness of Marietta Creek, not building 9,000 places all around the town, 2,000 on the west side, 2,000 at the bottom of Marietta Creek and Butterfield Stage. The arrogance of the developer to mention that Altar was an infill project, if so, make it hereby known that it is an inappropriate infill project. However, it is not one. It is not connecting to Old Town buildings at all. It is the wilderness backed up to Old Town. Trying to go under the guise of infill shows that Ambient will stoop at nothing to try to rectify a law-breaking, CEQA-violating environmental warfare on the unbuilt, untrod chaparral habitat on the west side of Temecula. Now I have to go to number 2, which says I must apologize because I did not understand the food chain. And I was not properly advertising for new information on how humans are going to have to live more petitely next to wildlife, less invasively, less aggressively. And this new information, and many of you know this, is because I thought mountain lions ate rodents. They do not. They eat deer, bobcat, coyotes, without which we have an infestation of these creatures which eat rodents. And therefore, people place anticoagulant poison to kill these animals, and therefore the coyote becomes poison, and the mountain lion eats the coyote. So it goes up the food chain, and scientific tests have showed that these types of poisons are in the livers of many of these animals. So we have made the population ill and brought mange to the mountain lion. We don't want these things. We want healthy wildlife because that will keep our population healthy. So the best action is to hire an exterminating company that will stop up the areas in your barn or home or bus or whatever the problem is. And the Assembly Bill AB 2596 curtails the sale of the worst poisons, but you're just going to have to call the exterminator. And if we need Habitat to help us pay for these things, well, maybe an organization around here can help do that. And number 3, we must stop shaking the West Coast with heavy equipment, grading for unnecessary housing, shopping malls, drilling for oil on or offshore. There goes my time. And once again, I write papers, I leave addresses, I receive no response from Temecula. Elsinore sends me months in advance postcard notices and registered letters stating that I should show up to select hearings. They also send over 20 papers of responses. Against the law not to respond to each of our letters. So if there are any lawyers out here to represent me, then just get a hold of me, and we will do something about Temecula not sending out their proper notification
Miller,
by
I'm gonna
law.
have to ask you to wrap up.
You're asking me to wrap it, so I can say one more thing. Marietta Vista High School encouraged its engineers, students to wattage test their rooms so that they're not leaking any electricity. Even though you and Marietta are very good at solar, they like to keep it as such that they don't have to use any more than necessary, so they can go on to the storage program, storage of energy.
Thank you.
The final speaker is Mark Caton.
Good evening, Mr. Caton. Always a pleasure.
Jonathan up there? Hello. Hello. Mr. Mayor, council members, staff. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to you again. If you haven't guessed, yes, it is. It is time for Taste of Temecula Valley again. So you'll only listen to me 6 more times before the event. So you can mark your calendars one less. But 6 more times. We've got a great event planned this year. It'll be April 27th and 28th. April 27th being the VIP night, where we have the concert and entertainment. That'll be Friday night, and it's just a wonderful event. And all of the food is prepared by Pachanga, with 14 of their chefs on your property. It's the only event where Pachanga comes off property to actually cook and serve food. So we're quite pleased with that. And that'll be their 4th year doing that. This is our 8th year that the City of Temecula has helped us put on the event. And so with that, I would like to thank you all for your help for the last 7. And we're working on number 8. Vendors are signing up pretty regularly. Had another 2 more today. So should be a nice full event, and we look forward to seeing you all there. We really do appreciate your support and your participation.
Great. Thank you. Look forward to seeing you there.
Thanks.
All right. Do we have any city council reports?
I do.
All right. Ms. Edwards.
Last Saturday, the city was invited to attend a kickoff luncheon or a celebratory luncheon at Pachanga, because Pachanga has formed its own utility, and in partnership with several other tribes, 5 or 6 other tribes, not just locally, but these tribes are located in other parts of the country as well. And through that utility, they are currently providing power to the entire hotel, casino, and the new wing operation, as well as the parking structures, and even a few homes on the reservation. So we celebrated with Pachanga and took a tour of their generation plant, and it is a remarkable, remarkable accomplishment. And I wanted to mention it because I sometimes think we don't realize how fortunate we are to have such, Pachanga is just so progressive, and they really do lead the way as far as tribal nations, as far as their quality of development and their visions that they have. And this is just one other step forward into the future that Pachanga has made to become self-sustaining and to provide cooperative electricity with the other tribes that they work with as part of that consortium. So the city offered its congratulations, and I can tell you we had a chance to enter the new facility that they're going to be opening, and oh my goodness, it is absolutely spectacular. So, you know, we look forward to celebrating the opening of their new facility with them. So that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. Any others? No. All right. I just have a couple of quick items to mention. One of those, speaking about energy, nice little segue here. The Western Riverside Council of Governments has a variety of energy activities, and as part of that partnership, one of the things they do is provide sort of tier level tracking for cities as far as their energy efficiency goes. Very happy to say that the city of Temecula has advanced from a gold status to a platinum status. And this achievement for us and for so many other cities that are sort of trying to work their way up this ladder is that we are able to achieve higher incentives on energy efficiency projects from both Southern California Edison and SoCal Gas. And so this was a great new thing for the city of Temecula to be very proud of, and just wanted to thank staff for all the hard work that they've done to help us reach the platinum level finally. I think I had a slide maybe as well. I just wanted to remind folks that you can today download that app and get in touch with the city of Temecula very easily. It's a wonderful new tool for us to be able to get immediate input from folks on issues related to roads or what have you. And so if you get a chance, download the app. It's free. We didn't charge 99 cents like so many of them do. But it's a great new tool for our folks to stay in touch. And speaking of apps and so forth, Mr. Hall, I wanted to just acknowledge your comments on Marietta Creek, and sort of coincidentally, I'm going to be in Washington, D.C. later this week, meeting with the Army Corps of Engineers and others on exactly the issues you've brought up. It's come to a lot of our attention that the project as designed and ultimately implemented or not implemented doesn't meet our expectations. Extremely disappointed with what has happened along that. And so we're making our voice loud and clear. We're meeting with our congressional representatives as well while there to make sure that, while the Army Corps has done a fantastic job of helping us address, flooding issues, our city can't be left worse off because of the construction activities. So I will be reporting back, and at our next meeting, Mr. Hall, I'll let you know exactly what's going on and whether we need to elevate our actions to a different level. So appreciate the comment, though, and we're on top of things as much as we can. With that said, we now move on to consent calendar. All matters listed under consent calendar are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one roll call vote. There will be no discussion of these items unless members of the City Council request specific items be removed from the consent calendar for separate action. Item number 1, waive reading of standard ordinances and resolutions. 2, approve the action minutes of January 9, 2018. 3, approve the list of demands. 4, adopt ordinance 18-04, adding chapter 8.49, City Tree Care and Preservation, to Title 8, Health and Safety of the Temecula Municipal Code. This is our second reading. Item number 5, award a construction contract to CT&T Concrete Paving, Inc. for the sidewalks citywide, Ridge Park West Segment 34 project, PW 17-27. And any discussion, or would
Move
like
approval of the consent calendar?
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. And that passes 4-0 with Mr. Stewart absent. We're now going to adjourn the City Council meeting to the meeting of the Temecula Community Services District.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to call this meeting of the Temecula Community Services District to order. Madam Clerk, let's take the roll, please.
Director Edwards?
Here.
Director Nagar?
Here.
Director Ron?
I'm here.
Director Stewart is absent. President Comachero?
Here. Okay, do we have any public comment under this portion?
We do not.
Okay, then we'll move on to the consent calendar. We have only one item, item 6, approve the action minutes of January 9th, 2018.
Move approval.
Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second by Dr. Ron. The motion was by Mrs. Edwards. Please cast your vote. And that motion carries 4-0 with Mr. Stewart absent. Mr. Hawkins, got anything for us?
Nothing tonight, Mr. President. I know.
Wow, must be a new year. Thanks, Kevin.
All right.
Aaron, General Manager report?
Nothing tonight, Mr. President, either.
Any director's reports?
Nope.
Seeing none, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn to the next regular meeting of February 13th.
Move adjournment as stated.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any objection? Besides Mr. Nagar? We are adjourned. 3-1.
Passed 3-1. Okay, well then I am now convening the successor agency to the Temecula Redevelopment Agency meeting. Madam City Clerk, note that all directors are present except for Mr. Stewart. Do we have any public comment?
We do not.
All right, seeing none, we will move on to the consent calendar. Again, all matters listed under consent are considered to be routine, and all will be enacted by one roll call vote. There's no discussion of these items unless members of the successor agency to the redevelopment agency request specific items be removed for discussion. Item number 7, approve action minutes of January 9, 2018. And item number 8, approve recognized obligation payment schedule for the period of July 1, 2018 through June 30, 2019, ROPS 1819. Have a motion.
Yeah, I'll move it.
Second.
All right. Okay, and that passes 4-0 with Mr. Stewart absent. Do we have an executive director's report?
Not tonight.
Okay, do we have any board members' directors' reports? None. Seeing none, we're going to adjourn the SARTA meeting and reconvene the meeting of the Temecula City Council as there are no meetings of the Housing Finance Authority tonight. All right. We have one public hearing tonight. Any person may submit written comments to the City Council before a public hearing or may appear to be heard in support or opposition to the approval of a project at the time of the hearing. If you challenge a project in court, it may be limited to raising only those issues you or someone else raised at the public hearing or in written correspondence delivered to the city clerk at or prior to the public hearing. Can we have a staff report, please?
Thank you, Mayor Ron, council members. This is PA 17-0741 and PA 17-1640, the Aurora Power Ranch Specific Plan Amendment Number 4 and the General Plan Amendment. So as I said, this is a specific plan amendment, and what this specific plan amendment does is it does adjust the specific plan in the following areas, and we'll go back into each of these areas individually in a little bit. In the land use, the public sports park, circulation, trails, and bikeways, Lawn Valley wash improvements, landscape architecture, stormwater quality, and architectural design. In addition, the specific plan amendment will not revise any of the public improvements required of the Phase 2 builders. It will not make any revisions to the current development agreement, and it will also not increase the number of dwelling units that were previously approved in the specific plan. So there will not be one additional unit built that was previously approved, and the overall density of the project will remain the same if it was originally approved. For the general plan amendment, it does amend the underlying general plan land use designation for Phase 2 of the project only to a specific plan implementation land use. What this does, it allows the general plan to defer to the provisions and restrictions of the specific plan. The SPI land use is also used in the Old Town specific plan, the Uptown Temecula specific plan, and the recently adopted Altair specific plan. A little bit of background. In 2002, the Aurora Power Ranch specific plan and EIR were adopted and approved by the City of Temecula City Council. So this shows the overall Aurora Power Ranch specific plan. Phase 1 is where it's built out. There's no changes proposed in this phase. Phase 2 is what we're talking about here today. Project location, again, of the entire specific plan area. You have Butterfield Stage Road, Nicholas Road, and Marietta Hot Springs Road. And then a little bit more of context for the entire city. This shows where Phase 2 is within the city. And again, you have Butterfield Stage, Nicholas, and Marietta Hot Springs. So this is a conceptual site plan layout of the Phase 2 development. It's obvious to see where the individual residential lots are, so I wanted to show you, point out where the non-residential aspects of the project were. So you have the elementary school, middle school, sports park, the commercial component, the park and ride, as well as the trailhead, 2 private recreation centers, Lawn Valley Wash, and the open space located in the northern portion of the project. So going back into each individual area that's being amended in the specific plan, to start with, you have the land use section. So what this is doing is it's providing a greater variety and mix of lot sizes. It's going to decrease the number of very small lot sizes, while overall it's generally going to increase the lot sizes throughout phase 2 of the development. On the perimeter lots on the eastern and the southern boundary of phase 2, they were originally approved as 1 acre lots. Those have been amended to 1/2 acre on the eastern boundary and 20,000 square foot minimum lots along the southern boundary. Even though the lots are being reduced in size, they're basically just being cut in half. The depth of the lots remain the same, as well as the setbacks, so there will not be a house built closer to the neighboring residences that was originally approved. And I'll show you exactly on the site plan where these are located. It also allows an option for age-qualified or restricted dwelling units. The minimum age of 55 would be required and controlled by a deed restriction. It also provides for a second private recreation center in PA 23B, in addition to the previously approved recreation center in PA 30. It also allows for the development of multifamily units on either or both of the school sites. This would happen if the Temecula Valley Unified School District does not construct one or both of the schools. There would be a maximum of 20 dwelling units per acre allowed on those sites. And then again, the maximum number of the 2015 dwelling units for the entire specific plan, so what's already been built as well as what will be built in phase 2, will not be exceeded. So again, this is the location of the 1/2 acre minimum lots and the 20,000 square foot lots, both on the perimeters of the project. And then again, the elementary school and the middle school site, which would have the option if the school district decides not to develop. This would be the location of the multifamily units. And then again, the private recreation centers. In terms of the public sports park, so these are additional facilities that the city is getting in the sports park in addition to what was previously approved. Enlarged lighted soccer fields with synthetic turf, enlarged baseball fields with concrete seating platforms, a 2-story concession and office building, maintenance and storage building and a yard, paved parking for 221 parking spaces, a nature exploration area, an expanded picnic area, additional public restrooms, and an open lawn area. Now, just to show you exactly where on the sports park all these things are going to exist, obviously baseball fields, soccer fields, concession building located right in the middle that has the office building on top, maintenance yard, the lawn and picnic areas, parking lot, and the nature exploration area. Moving on to the circulation trails and bikeways portion. So Loop Road has been revised from a semi-private road to a public road when the gates were removed from the project. 3 roundabouts have been added for better circulation. There's a 6-foot wide sidewalk on the interior of Loop Road and a 10-foot wide DG trail on the perimeter of Loop Road, as well as 6-foot wide bike lanes on both sides of the road. In addition to that, the interior local streets have been revised to comply with fire requirements, and they will be either public or private, but that's at the developer's discretion. In terms of Lawn Valley Wash, it's now an amenity that's open to the public. Originally, with the private gates on Loop Road, it basically became a private amenity just for the people that lived within phase 2 and obviously their guests. So now it's open to the entire public. It has a 12-foot wide asphalt surface road for maintenance vehicles, as well as a 4-foot wide decomposed granite trail. Just to show you the cross-section of Loop Road, and we can walk through it here going from left to right. The left would be starting on the perimeter, working our way to the interior on the right side. So you'd have the 10-foot DG trail, followed by the 5-foot parkway, the first 6-foot bike lane, Then you have the travelway, the other bike lane, parkway, and then the sidewalk on the interior of Loop Road. So here's a rendering of Loop Road. To the right would be the interior with the sidewalk, and then to the extreme left would be the trail. In addition, a rendering of one of the three roundabouts. As you can see, there is landscaping on the interior of them. It would not just be concrete paving. And then the Long Valley Wash Trail. So this cross-section shows the north side of the trail, which has the 12-foot Class 1 path, and that's really there for the maintenance vehicles. So flood control can get down to maintain the wash, as well as the 4-foot DG trail. And then when you transition to the south side of the wash, it becomes the same cross-section of 16 feet, but it's all DG trail without the maintenance road. Long Valley Wash improvements. So they've been revised from a complete concrete channel to mostly vegetated with stabilization structures throughout the wash. Originally, it was just going to be your standard concrete wash that you see in other places of the city. Now it's a vegetated wash. It looks much nicer. Improves the visual appearance and maintenance. So as I already stated, the wash and the trails do become a central public amenity for the development rather than just the project residents or their guests. In terms of landscape, they've basically been updated to conform to the current water-efficient landscape ordinance and development code. And then the landscape concepts and plant palettes are proposed to maintain consistency with the architectural guidelines, adjacent roadways, and the wine country community that's located to the east of this project. For stormwater, it accommodates new provisions for stormwater quality and treatment, and all the planning areas have been redesigned to provide access to water quality basins for treatment and stormwater runoff, as well as it improves the stormwater quality within the project to downstream properties. In terms of architecture, so in the original and specific plan, there were 14 approved architectural styles. What the applicant has done is they've taken those 14 architectural styles and carried them into phase 2 for the single-family development. In addition to that, they've taken those same 14 styles and incorporated the primary style elements and made those into multifamily development as well. And the design guidelines have been updated to come into conformance with the current city standards. This also allows for more flexibility in selection of proving the architectural styles. So what I did is I picked 4 of the architectural styles to show what they could look like as multifamily developments. So you'd have the California Ranch, Mediterranean, Colonial, and Craftsman. So that's 4 of the 14. Moving on to the general plan amendment. So again, this will amend the general plan land use designation for phase 2 only again to a specific plan implementation land use. This allows for the general plan again to defer to the provisions and restrictions of the specific plan. And this was really necessitated in the event that the school district elects not to build one or both of the schools, because currently the general plan land use is public institutional, which would not allow for that multifamily development. So at some point, the developer would have to come back in for a general plan amendment anyway in order to do the multifamily development. So, and like I said, the SPI land use would allow for that multifamily. So this just shows what the current general plan land uses look like for Royal Park Ranch Phase 1 and Phase 2. And then this would be the proposed general plan land use with the SPI for the entire portion of Phase 2. Again, Phase 1 would remain, as you see on the upper portion of the slide, as the existing land uses. In terms of environmental, there was an environmental impact report addendum that was prepared for the project. There was also one community meeting that was held, was organized by the applicant. Staff was present. It was on July 18th of last year, 2017, and a couple of main concerns were brought up from the public. They were Nicholas Road improvements. When are they going to happen? The overall timing of the project, and then the transition from the Nicholas Valley residential lots to the Roripaw lots. In addition, the applicant did meet with the Roripaw Ranch Ad Hoc City Council Subcommittee on August 18th of last year as well. And in that meeting, there was a request for more defined architectural standards, which I feel the applicant has done by going back to basically the standards that are already approved, carried them over to phase 2, as well as, I think, greatly improved the multifamily standards that we discussed. And then also a clearer process for those school sites becoming a multifamily development. With that, staff does recommend that the Planning Commission adopt the proposed Planning Commission staff recommends that the City Council adopt the proposed Planning Commission resolutions recommending City Council approve of the project and adoption of Environmental Impact Report Addendum Number 3. That concludes staff's report. I'm here for questions. The owners and applicants and their entire team are here as well.
Anybody have questions? Mr. Comachero.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is interesting. Who initiated this SPA, the city or the applicant?
The applicant.
Okay. The city's getting an awful lot, and I'm not complaining. Normally, in this kind of a matter, there'd be a quid pro quo and negotiation. And I don't see what the developer is getting. I'm not here to look out for him. They can look out for themselves. But I find that a bit unusual. Is there something we're not seeing? It looks like the only thing they're getting is the ability to downsize those perimeter lots.
I would agree.
Far be it for me to argue. Okay. I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything, or we didn't miss anything. What do you suppose the likelihood is, or have they tipped their hand at all, the school district concerning those sites? Are they going to want to build there? Won't they?
I know that last week the applicant did have a meeting with the school district. I would defer to them on exactly what was discussed in that meeting. But I personally have not heard anything.
Okay. If the applicant is going to speak, if they could address that, I appreciate it. And finally, the sports park, are those fields going to be synthetic?
The soccer fields are synthetic, and the baseball fields are as well.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Just one quick one for me on the, Mr. Comachero mentioned the school sites. There's no timeline, though, that says you have to make a decision by a certain date.
There is not a date-specific timeline.
That of interest to anyone? I mean, I'd hate to see the development move forward and then, ultimately they hit the capacity on, the number of allowable units, and then the school district decides, ultimately not to do anything on that property, and then we're left with 2 large vacant lots in the middle of the development.
No, that's a very good point. And currently, the applicant does have tentative maps in process with the city for about 950 lots. So there still is some wiggle room of up to 600 lots, but I understand exactly what you're saying.
Okay. Any idea on how we might resolve? I mean, clearly the applicant's, going to be the one to work with the school district on this as well. So maybe we can wait for them to help address that question too. So, all right. Seeing no other questions, thank you so much for your report. And does the applicant have a presentation or something they'd like to say?
La Serena.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I don't know.
So, just something short. I'm Ken Kramer with Roripaw Valley Restoration. We're the primary landowner in Phase 2 and the co-applicant on these planning applications before you, along with the representatives from the other Phase 2 landowner and co-applicant Wing Sweep Corporation. We want to thank you for hearing our proposals tonight. City staff from multiple departments, both of the landowners, and the many talented consultants who are sitting here have worked many, many months to produce these enhanced project plans that we're discussing tonight. We truly feel this is a much improved plan. They'll benefit the city, the future residents who will be living here, and the surrounding residents in the community as well. I don't really have a presentation. I would say school sites, the school district, we didn't have a meeting last week, but we've met with them numerous times. You know, they have a lot of considerations, enrollment, other people, funding. I think their pivot point is how many of these units are maybe built as age qualified, which becomes an option now. Huge demand for that in the area. Really good, you know, option to have for a developer. So I think they're waiting for us or the group that may succeed us to decide how many of those age qualified or age restricted units they build. So obviously those people don't have children, so that affects their enrollment numbers. So I think as soon as the development plan for the rest of it becomes a little more clear, then they'll make their decision, and then we'd move forward with either school sites or the alternative. So,
Okay.
shed a little light on that. Anything else I can clarify or bring up?
No, good. I appreciate it. Just, you know, stay in touch with staff on that issue. And, you know,
Yeah.
as that comes closer, it'd be good to maybe pin that down with the school district. And,
Well, of course.
yeah, absolutely. Okay.
Yeah, so I'd like just take a moment and say, you know, want to thank, you know, the city staff. Been working on this for a long time, been involved with this project for a long time, you know, Scott and Stuart and Matt Peters, who isn't here, and Luke Watson with planning, and Myra and Annie and Steve and Mr. Thomas with Public Works and Fire Department, Community Services, and Jennifer, and Mr. Thorson's wise counsel is always helpful, and you know, special thanks to Mr. Butler over there, who's been the glue, who's been around the whole time and keeping us really focused and, you know, getting a good project for your city. So hats off to your staff.
Good. Thank you so much. Appreciate the shout out and the Mouseketeer roll call you just gave us.
Okay.
So, appreciate it. All right. Any other comments?
Nope.
Comments? No? Madam City Clerk, do we have any public comments?
Mr. Mayor, after you open the public hearing, we have one public comment, and that public comment is from Ms. Miller.
All right, Ms. Miller.
I deeply apologize for not getting involved before now. You're selling your soul out for a sports park surrounded by more housing. My voice is weak tonight. I got up out of the bed to come here. First and foremost, there must be laws established that no property can ever be graded until there is proof that this project will move forward. The terrible attitude of developers like Ashby of Marietta to clear the land and pack it for building foundations before every permit and bond for roads and lights is completed is archaic and environmentally criminal. And that's what that place looks like right now. The economy is very shaky. No bulldozer should be headed over to any project before all phases of financing and paying the workers is set aside, unable to be ripped off in the event of the predicted economic demise. That goes for Altair, the retirement warehouse next to Linfield, the high-density Cypress apartments. So don't order up any land-terminating equipment. Don't order up any forest products. Don't strip mine for anything. This project is bringing in 22,000 homes, possibly 8,000 more people, sucking up the resources. And did you hear South Africa will have one of the first cities at Cape Town to have its water cut off in April because they have run out of water, because these fools around here do chemtrails so that you can have no rain on football games and events. And you support this. You've got to stop the chemtrails. They've dried up the planet. So you think Temecula has water for the fires that could come down these wild areas around this project? You don't. You can't make water. You can only try to stop it. All right. In 2001, Sam Pratt and Mr. Nagar mentioned that it was difficult to keep up with the electricity generation. Is this project somehow energy independent? I sincerely doubt it. CEQA 15162, substantial change in the traffic flow needs to result in another costly EIR. We must attempt to collect the information on the cumulatively outpouring of GHG emissions from Riverside County, which has 60,000 houses projected to be started by terrible groups like Brookfield. They probably stalk this place too, just like these people. Anyway, has the Eastern Bypass made that much of a difference? 3 o'clock traffic here in this town is deplorable. All up and down from Elsinore to Temecula. It's not flowing. You've got to do something about the schools first and their traffic. Tell the parents to let their kids out a mile ahead of the schools and let them walk and get some healthy exercise and less pollution. But you're not working on programs like that. You're working on dumping more cars on I-15 irresponsibly because people go back to San Diego. But haven't you seen the YouTubes that say people are sick of ruining their cars, not being with their families, their friends? They are going back to San Diego. Who are you going to sell these houses to? No one. Ghost towns. Blight. Crime. Temecula cannot continue to produce road noise that causes the health issues of hearing loss. You are downsizing the health of your citizens. You couldn't even get an appropriate drone picture of the project. It was so dull from bad air. So you want to keep producing that kind of low-quality visuals? I don't want to see them. I want to see something I can see. Disturbing vibrations from bulldozing, rock extraction by dynamite, use of heavy equipment, delivery trucks added cumulative up and down the West Coast adds to the background shaking of the Earth's crust, which enhances the possibility of earthquakes faster than they're coming. As you note with Oklahoma and its fracking for more oil to run these bulldozers that we don't want here, this will create too much sky glow and violation of the dark sky program. Significant storm drain runoff will accumulate in the Marietta Creek, which
Ms.
will
Miller, you're
wind
almost out
through
of time. If you could
Old Town.
wrap up.
Stormwater collecting in Old Town. Your little dredge job is going to be filled up due to the infamous flooding of the entire area from Elsinore to Hemet to Wildemar, underwater every time we have one of these spectacular rains, blessings that gets through everything that you're stopping with your geoengineering of the weather.
I have to ask you
Abandon this project and allow Long Valley Wash to flow back into the loving roots and
Ms.
arms
Miller?
of Santa Gertrudis Creek.
Complete your, thank you. All right, do the...
Mr. Mayor, we have no further public comments. You're welcome to close the public hearing.
All right, we're going to go ahead and close that public hearing. And do my colleagues have any discussion?
Yeah, just real quickly. You know, the planning, just reminiscing just a little bit, planning for this project goes back, I think, all the way to 1997. And I remember the very day we approved it in 2001, I believe it is, or 2002. Yeah. And then, interestingly enough, here's a bit of anecdote, and Jeff and Peter, I know you'll remember this specifically. Maybe a week, let's see, it got approved, been 2-3 weeks, a month or two later, $55 million in bonds were sold, only for the project to go bankrupt. Ms. Edwards, you remember this, bankrupt about 4 days or 5 days after the bonds were sold. And that actually kicked off a very, very tenuous and very strenuous process of us having to keep the bondholders aware of everything that was going on. Eventually, again, I think Mr. Thorson and management at the time, we were able to secure those funds and start to build public infrastructure way, 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 way in advance of any homes ever being built there. And so this has a very interesting history. But having said that, it's one of the most beautiful specific plans in the city of Temecula. So I gladly move 9.1, 9.2, and 9.3.
I'll second that, but I do have a comment as well.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, you're stretching my memory a little bit, but I do remember that. And I think it's important to note, although the speaker was rather animated in saying that we shouldn't allow these, what seems like additional homes to be built, this project was approved in 2002, and not one single home in addition to that approval is being proposed here. Not one. So it's awfully hard to make the case that we're adding additional homes here. And I raised the question before, what's the developer getting? Seems like the city's getting everything. Well, I was a little bit rhetorical because I imagine what the developer is getting is a much more saleable project. And ultimately, when they build their homes, they're going to be more attractive and they'll be able to sell them. Well, good for us. Yeah. Because they want to sell their project after they build homes. We're getting a sports park, we're getting trails, we're getting all kinds of additional amenities. So it's awfully hard not to support this, so I heartily second.
And I will add one comment. Not only did the developer go bankrupt, but the bank financing the developer went bankrupt.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
If I could, with the acknowledgement of Assistant City Manager Butler, we do owe Mr. Kramer some thanks too, because he and his group came in at the worst possible time, purchased this project, kept the property taxes going, kept everything working fine, so that as the market turned around, we did have the opportunity to continue with this. So
Yes.
good job.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes. Okay, and that passes 4-0 with Mr. Stewart absent. Okay, we are now on to commission reports. Do we have any this evening? We'll start with Mr. Schwank.
Good evening, Mayor Ron. Just one quick item to note. This Thursday, 6:30 at the Temecula Public Library, Matt Peters and myself will be hosting a discussion on biking in Temecula. So Matt's going to give an overview of what we're currently doing and then what's on the radar. I'm going to be talking about Temecula Bike Train, an organization that we started, my wife and I started, that promotes kids biking to school. So we were invited by the library, and we really look forward to empowering more families to get out and bike.
Great.
Join us.
Thank you so much. Mr. Yeomans.
Nothing tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Sullivan.
Yeah, in slight competition with Zach, the next public safety traffic meeting will be Thursday at 6 p.m. in these chambers. So if you're not into hiking or biking but want to see why we're the safest city, one of the safest cities in the country, come on by and watch why. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. And beautiful segue. For us to avoid desultory meetings here, I've invited our police chief, and our next meeting, I'll be inviting our fire chief to the dais, just to provide us with regular updates on public safety issues related to police and fire. So, Chief McConnell, thank you for joining us this evening. Do we have a report from you this evening?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Ron. During the month of December, our officers responded to 7,297 calls for service. Part of this number does include our traffic citations that were issued during that time. They issued 1,510 traffic citations and 63 parking citations. They also investigated 276 traffic accidents, which included anything from a major injury accident to a minor fender bender or hit and runs. They also handled 96 DUI investigations, and our commercial enforcement officer issued 92 citations. The commercial enforcement is like the big rig trucks, any type of commercial vehicle that he does checks on. So he was pretty active during the month of December. Some of our quality of life issues, we had 47 calls for service with our trespassing, loitering type of issues. Our homeless outreach team had 9 files that they pulled. So what that means is they went out with the resources and they were able to actually link a homeless individual either with family or some type of housing. So we did have 9 success stories last month, which was great. And if you're not aware, today was our point in time count. So last year we counted 85. This year we're at 68. So we have seen a reduction. I credit that to, I think, the partnership that the city has with law enforcement, our community resources. We just came on board with CityNet. So I think in the upcoming months that those numbers are going to go down too. So.
All right, wonderful. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, just great opportunity for us to sort of share. I know that similar reports are given at the traffic safety meetings, and Mr. Sullivan, I'm not sure you get the same audience that we do always here, but you know, I figured it would be great to sort of make sure that that message is broadcast a little bit wider, and really let our residents know the tremendous work that police and fire do for our city. So thank you very much. All right, moving right along, do we have a city manager's report?
Mr. Mayor, just one comment. I want to echo what Mr. Kramer said and acknowledge the work that Greg Butler has done for well over a decade on the Rorapaw Ranch project. He and I are one of the last people standing, I think, when this project was introduced, and albeit in different roles and capacities, and Greg really has done an amazing job and has the institutional knowledge to see this to the finish line, so I too appreciated his efforts. So.
All right, and Mr. City Attorney.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we had a closed session tonight, but we have no action items to report from closed session.
Okay, move adjournment.
Second. All right, motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We will see you on February 13th.